Hello, my name is John Sveck. Welcome to this ALL24 video. In this episode, Coach Gary Waterman and I are joined by Ryan Bechmanis, who is the defensive coordinator and linebacker coach at Queen's University. He's going to walk us through a linebacker drill. So I'll give you the floor, Coach.
Thanks, coaches. Appreciate you guys having me on this. This drill that we're going to go through is more of an attack the gap drill. So what we do is we get a linebacker set up between two O-linemen or between an offensive lineman and a fullback. And what we do is we want them to read their gap, where their gap's stepping towards, and then they got to attack through their gap and finish off with tapping off on the ball carriers. So it combines a block to struck technique that we use, and it combines a tackling movement for us. We're also be able to practice in the drill that you're going to see, which is our non-contact tempo. So we're in full pads, we're destructing the block with some violence, but as we get into contact on the tackle, you'll see we're just touching off and tagging off on the ball carrier. So a couple key things when we're doing that, our guys need to understand that our feet initiate contact when we get to the tackle, and that we want to get as close to the ball carrier as we can to tap off onto their hip. We don't want our arms extended. We don't want to reach, because then we're not making those arm tackles in the game. So we need to make sure that our feet initiate contact, get right to the leverage tip of the ball carrier. When we destruct the block, again, we need to make sure that we're stepping to stay into our gap first before we try to attack and rip through, so we're able to attack a third of the man that we're up against, especially when you get to a backer that may be mugged or jetted up on the line of scrimmage going against a bigger offensive lineman. We want to use our speed and leverage to our advantage and only take on half to a third of a man in there. So if we want to flip to the film, we'll show a couple clips here as we get going.
All right, we got the film up here, Coach. I'll just let it run, and you let me know if you want me to stop it.
So in this drill here, we've predetermined the direction we're going to go. So we have the way the gap's moving, the backside offensive lineman is going to be holding the hand shield, so it gives us a surface area to rip through. We're kind of protecting our players and not doing a ton of contact stuff here. So what we're doing is we're starting on coach command. What you also can do is start the drill when the O-lineman moves, so they're able to read and react a little bit more. But our guys right now are just from a nice mug footwork. They're taking a nice lateral step because that's where their gap is going. And then they're ripping through the backside part of the gap so they don't get washed and cave down too far. In a game, if you have an opportunity to be free and clear in the gap, you don't have to worry about fighting that pressure. But right now we're anticipating on the backside of an inside or outside zone, that offensive lineman really being down and no air in the gap, so we have to fight through. We want to flip our shoulder pads a little bit to give the O-lineman less of a surface area to block. And then with high and a violent rip, we want to clear through the gap, fighting that pressure. And then you can see we're redirecting to a running back to tap off on that whiz tempo, trying to track down, get right to their hip. We want to attack, take the air out of the gap, and close the distance as fast as we can so we don't get our feet stopped in the middle of a play and let the running back have an opportunity to change direction.
That's great, Coach. A couple questions I have for you. You know, I always ask linebacker coaches, and what do you talk about? You tell your linebackers about eyes. Where should their eyes be in some of these movements?
So pre-snap right now, what we want to be doing is we want to be staring through our gap and reading the waist down of the O-lineman to start with. So we're going to see the running back by looking through our gap. So we want to see where the O-lineman's going to move, get a standard key off where the O-linemen are going to step. Whether you get a down and pull read out of this, whether you get both of them moving in the same direction in an inside-outside zone, or they step back and you get a pass set. But we want to be able to read both edges of our gaps because offensive coaches are good enough. They can give you a false key just with one player. So we try to read through our gap to the backfield to see where they're going to go. Once the play starts, they know where to step through our gap. Now we're getting an aiming point through our gap into the backfield, and if an O-lineman is into our window there, we'll be able to fight through that and understand how to defeat that block. And as soon as we clear our gap, our eyes are going right to the leverage tip of that running back so we can track him, we can change direction and go from there.
Awesome. Any tips for linebackers sometimes when maybe they're a little late and they're trying to rip through and they're getting washed down, and any tips on how they sort of respond to that?
It's kind of leaning in to fight that pressure. Obviously, the easy one to work on is when the gap's wide open. You can shoot right through it. But it's getting yourself in a position to take on half a third of a man, kind of getting your outside foot aligned with the O-lineman's inside foot that's coming at you on the backside here. So for 48, his left foot should be always in front of the O-lineman holding the bag's inside foot. So that'll give him a better leverage aiming point to go at. when they get there. And then it's attacking with speed, because even if you may hit them a little too thick and a little too head up, if your feet are moving through contact and you're fighting and throwing your rip, you'll have the ability to still potentially get off of that block. If you slow down as you go into contact, we're going right into the O-lineman's wheelhouse where they can just hold, hang on to us, and drive their feet through contact, and we're in a bit of trouble because we're outsized and outmatched inside.
And that initial movement that your backers are using in this drill, that's a read off of what they're seeing by the offensive lineman. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's just, we're leveraging and staying our gap. We want them to move with flow right off the bat before they go downhill. If they were to take, when they're that tight on the line of scrimmage, if they're to take that read step going forward all the time, they could be wrong half the time they go. So we like them in a little more balanced stance. The weight's on the insteps, their feet and their knees are slightly in. That way they're able to push off either foot to go either direction. So that first step is just to stay leveraged into our gap and then be able to attack downhill after that.
And as we progress here, now you're going in the other direction.
Yeah, so you can see the shoulder pads too. We still need to work on getting our eyes up as we go through the rip. We don't want our eyes to go too far down. We like a little more bend at the knees to be able to explode, to come up and get to that powerful rip action with that elbow ripping through to the sky. And the elbow to the sky is just simulates clearing all the arms off and getting the O-lineman's hand have to reset on you, which gives you a chance to get through and use your speed. And you can see as we get into contact, we definitely need to kind of still continue to work on closing out that distance with our feet, not reaching to tap off, but going through and making sure that we're as tight to that ball carrier as we can without making contact, because this is our whiz tempo where we just tap off here.
I saw in your diagram you're eventually going to progress to where they don't know which way it's going. So I'm assuming then, are the offensive players each holding a bag? Is that how you work that progression and now you have to react?
Yeah, so we'll do it so they're each holding a bag, or we'll actually, depending on what type of practice that we're in, we'll take the bags out of it and actually have the guys try to come down and block. And that way our linebackers now have to read and the backs won't give it away. And even the progression we can do on this is have the back just work a cutback off of this. So the guys, okay, they may know which way they have to step to start with, but they still have to be able to react to the running back as they go through this. So the nice thing we'll progress out of this as well is we'll separate these two kind of groups here, and then they can each work a separate direction, whichever way they want with bags, or even the arm bullets they can have on the O-lineman. So we're at least chopping and violently moving off something without having to get anybody's head into contact here as well.
I was just going to mention a little bit about, or ask about, the pad flip. I know you mentioned the pad flip just sort of as they rip through. And can you maybe talk to some of those new coaches about, why you coach the pad flip, a slight pad flip on that dip and rip?
We try to do it so it gives the O-lineman a little bit less surface area to kind of grab onto, because if we don't flip our pads, they can still get their inside hand towards our chest plate. So if you see here where 44 is going, he's going to dip his right shoulder a little bit, which means that the O-lineman, it's hard for them to reach and grab around onto his chest plate where they don't call holding. So at least the pad flip gives a smaller surface area for the O-lineman to hit. And it also allows us to propel our shoulder through and able to get that rip going nice and high. So it propels us through and we can able to clear the block a little bit more on that. So we just try to flip them a little bit as we go through for power. It's similar to what a running back would do as they're going to hold. They don't want to give it square shoulders all the time as they go in there. They're going to turn their pads and be able to get off those arm tackles. So it kind of works in the same premise as an offensive player would there as well.
Great.
That's phenomenal. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and breaking this down for us, Coach. That's some really good stuff.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.